I just nearly didn't have it recording. I hit the record, and just as I was going to sit down, I was like, wait a minute. I had to hit it again. That was a little unhappy. Whew. Okay, so we're going to wrap up, talk about stuff. And it's really funny because I had kind of wanted this slightly earlier, but I think it's actually good because some of the things that, sometimes you get done with a book and you love or hate it, depending on the book. And then by the time you've ruminated over it, you have more things that you remember that you loved or didn't love and all the things. Well, it worked out really good because I had some things. I mean, I'm really tempted to change my review on one book because I'm like, I don't know. Not because I disagree with what I said, but that I feel like I didn't cover it all, But on the other hand, I'm like, I don't know. So we're gonna do a lot of talking. There could be spoilery things. So there's a couple of books that I will say, hey, if you don't want spoilers, this is where to skip. I'll try to remember to do timestamps. But yeah. It is a beautiful day out there, temperature-wise. I got the doors and windows open. It's been that way for 3 days. It's been stunning, but the wind is blasting. My hair is everywhere, and I decided I don't care. I just don't care. So we're just going to go with the books that I read. I don't think this is in order, but it could be. I don't know. So the first one I listened to was Anne of Green Gables for the Year of Maud. And I mean, come on, I knew I was going to love it. I know the story really well. I know all the quotes that I love, found new ones. And I did notice something this time that I've never been able to articulate. It's always been in the back of my mind, but I couldn't express what I was thinking. She really liked giving beautiful names to things, and did what she considered beautiful anyway. So, you have the Lake of Shining Waters and the White Way of Delight, and, because the avenue isn't good enough, right? And I got to thinking about it, and I was finally able to come up with what has always amused me, but not, again, I can't articulate it. She was really on the nose with her flowery, ridiculous names. The names that were truly beautiful and lovely and evocative are the ones that she got out of books. So when she talks about Idlewild or Lover's Lane or the Haunted Wood, those are all things she got from books. But the White Way of Delight, it's just, in other words, it's a way and it's white and she's delighted. It's very on the nose. Lake of Shining Waters. Well, it's a pond and there's sun on it and it's shining on the waters. I mean, I never was able to say what it was that I noticed. I just knew there was something about it that was just funny, and I couldn't articulate it. And then I realized they're really on the nose, but to her they feel really original, and I thought it was really fun. I also discovered that I hate menopause because I've always choked up internally at Matthew's death. But this one, I sobbed like a little girl. And maybe it was because I listened. I'm going to listen to all of the Anns this year instead of read them to try to get a different experience. But maybe it was that I listened, but I don't think so. I think I'm blaming. I'm not a crier, or I haven't been. But I literally sobbed because I was like, no, not Matthew. He's just such a sweet, like all this is real. This is what makes a good author. She makes it all real, and she does it with such beautiful prose. I don't always like lyrical and beautiful prose. I don't always like a lot of description. Usually I don't. But seriously, I wish Charles Dickens had been able to read this book before he started writing, to just talk with Maud and talk to her about, the best way, because she knows how to give you all that you need to get that immersion without drowning you in it like he does. I know, so most people love Dickens. I'm so glad that they do. I just don't. So yeah, got that one done. Obviously it was 5 stars. What else would it be, right? Okay, next up, I was talking to Jill Williamson. She has her Blood of Kings series, and she is now an author, a lead author with Sunrise Publishing. So she's got 3 new authors who are writing in her Blood of Kings world. And so she came on the podcast to talk about it. And I'm like, I want to read this Blood of Kings first, because I want to know who these people are before, So I went back and I read By Darkness Hid. Okay, actually I listened to it. Pretty good narrator, I'm just going to say. I enjoyed the narration. But, so By Darkness Hid is your typical epic fantasy. Typical, right? It has all those elements we're familiar with, but what I loved is that, okay, remember, I don't read tons of epic fantasy type stuff. But, and this isn't epic fantasy length per se, it's 100,000 words maybe, I don't know. It's not, Throne of Kings or whatever those things. I can't remember. Throne of Gods, King of Thrones, King of Thrones, something like that. Anyhow, I think it's of Thrones though. Anyhow, it's not. I've seen those books. They're books. It's not that big, but it is. YA epic fantasy, fun stuff. Steeped in kind of the medieval-ish feel, and. In this one, there is this blood. What does she call it? It's a blood. What it is? I can't remember. But there's something connected to the blood that it runs in certain families, and it means that you can hear other people's thoughts and communicate without speaking. So it's like this telepathy kind of thing, but it's through the blood, and so there's that aspect. And then it's like all those things that we're used to, okay, in fantasy. It's all in there. But it feels new to me. That's where I was going with this. I knew there was a point. It feels new to me. It's like she did it in a fresh way for me anyway. I just really enjoyed it. But what I loved, okay, it's a really twisty thing. As soon as you know what's going to happen, the opposite thing happens. You're like, because usually you can kind of spot when there's going to be a twist, that she would throw things out of the water, and yet sometimes you're right in it, and you should know there's going to be a twist, because it's clear that this is twisty time, but you're so immersed in the story you missed it even then. So that was really cool. But what I loved most was the faith. So in this one, I can't remember what she calls the true God. It's along the lines of Alpha or the Maker or I am kind of thing, right? But there are lots of gods in this world, just like we have in ours, whether we want to admit it or not. And what I got, the faith in this was subtle, and yet not, because these people are focused on their gods, right? It was subtle, but it wasn't preachy, I guess is my point. But I you want to just shake these people who are, I don't know, somebody's car's having trouble. You want to, shake them for being so ridiculous with their little gods instead of trusting in the Lord, right? And yet the way she wrote it, I found myself going, yeah, but I do that with this thing. Oh, that's kind of how I am with that. It was brilliant. And I haven't read the second one or listened to. I'm going to listen to it. Haven't listened to the second one yet, but I'm eager to. I plan to just kind of, goodness, the cars are loud today. I just kind of plan to slowly, mosey on through the story, and take a couple weeks to read it. Yeah, it was like 2 days, 2.5. It was like zoom, zoomed right through it. Really loved it. Can't wait to read the next one. I made myself do a couple of other things in between it because I don't want them to blur. I want to be able, in case there's a strong difference that people need to know about, I want to know which one it is, because like Anne and Gables, I've always remembered Anne becoming a little more quiet and contemplative in Anne of Avonlea. I did not remember that starts at the end of Anne of Gables. And so I'm hoping, because I plowed through that series, the first time I read it. So I'm hoping that maybe if I have a chunk between them, that it'll make it easier to know what is in which one. I don't know, maybe not, but we'll see. So yeah, that one, obviously, total 5 stars. Loved it. And if you love fantasy, there's a good chance you will really like it. I mean, I have a hard time recommending fantasy because I don't read enough of it. I mean, I read it and I love it, but I don't read enough of it to be able to differentiate a lot of different things. You know, I can tell a different magic system here or there or whatever. Even if there's no magic, anything that is speculative has a magic system. It doesn't mean there's magic used. I'm just putting that out there. But anyway, so I don't know. I'm not good at that kind of differentiation yet, but just gotta say, really loved it. Okay, so the next one I read was Murder in Postscript by Mary Winters. Really loved it. It is the first in a series. For a minute there when I was reading it, I thought it was like number 4. Don't remember why I thought it was 4, but I did. And I was like, you know, wait a minute. But no, this is the first. And I might read the next one and see if I still like the series. So I enjoyed a lot of things about this book. The mystery was fun. I knew the who. I figured that out. And I just couldn't figure out the why, and I should have been able to. So it's a fair play. It's all in there. But I missed the why, and that was a lot of fun. But also, what is fun about this one, I gotta say. So I really get tired very quickly of the not like other girls thing. Just to be not like other girls. And I think that's what I'm sick of. It's not even I'm tired of the not like other girls trope, but that so many of them, especially in historical, in contemporary, it almost never bothers me. But in historical, the not like other girls trope tends to be a way to give someone in the 19th century, 21st century sensibilities. And I hate it. But I don't mind characters who are unique and fun and are quirky in and of themselves. They enjoy things that maybe other people don't. Not to show that, see, women can do anything, like I can do stuff like we tend to get. I get so tired of that. But I do like it when there's a point to it. This one, she is not like other women. She's a countess or something. She's not like others. And there is a reason for it. She couldn't be if she wanted to be. It's not possible because of who she is and because of all of her backstory and all the stuff. She couldn't be. And I love that because then it makes sense that she's not. And it enriched the story instead of irritating me, which was a huge blessing. So there was that. I gave it 4 stars, which could be a slight bit generous because, again, the mystery isn't that, unbelievable. But it was just a fun read. And I got such a kick out of it. So she's like an agony aunt in this one. And one of her people sends her this letter and, says, I think I saw someone killed. What am I going to do? And then that person dies. So she's like on a quest, right? Well, every chapter starts with one of her agony aunt letters and then her response. And she's really she's pretty brutal. If people around somebody are being idiots, she tells them, just be yourself. That's stupid. If the person writing is being an idiot, she just tells them, hey. And it's very practical and yet not independent for independence sake. If someone is, just saying, but I want my way, she's like, well, you know what? There's no reason you can't yield and be generous and kind to someone else, even while you stick to your guns. There were lots of little things like that. Whoa, my chair just went, whew. But so, I think it's tired and it doesn't want to hold me anymore. So it was really good. What definitely pulled a star down for me was there were a few, for sure, because I remember getting pulled out of the story. There were a few instances of Americanisms. This takes place in England. She's obviously, in the nobility of some sort. And the one I'm remembering right now, the one that just stands out the most glaring was she said something was very homey. And no British person would ever say it. It's homely over there. We say homey, they say homely. So that one, there were just a few, not very many. I'm going to say 5 at the most. but each one just ripped me out because it was, and it's one of those things where if I know it, maybe other readers should. It's not my area of expertise, so, you know. But anyway, I really did love the book. I had a lot of fun with it. It's just not quite, what do I do with my glasses? Not quite 5-star stuff. So next up, what do we got? What do we have? I don't know. Okay, next up is The Incident of the Bookshop in the Nighttime, or The Book in the Nighttime. One of the two. It's part of the Sherlock Holmes bookstore series by Vicki Delaney. This time they're back in England for her sister's wedding, and her ex-husband is found murdered, and all the stuff falls apart. Okay, I gave it 4 stars, which is probably generous, but I do enjoy the characters and the stuff, so I don't want to just like go too far down. The mystery itself just didn't grab me. I thought it was kind of obvious. So I did figure out the who, could not figure out the why. And it felt like, and it wasn't, but the way it was written, it really felt like Gemma and her friends were kind of Gemma and Jane and, is his name Walter? I don't know, the guy who's obsessed with Holmes. It felt like they were just kind of running around, being busy, trying to generate clues. I don't really think it was, but that's how it felt. And I discovered I just prefer the ones that are in West London instead of the ones that are in actual London. I just prefer it. This just didn't do anything for me. And yet I enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed getting to know more about her family and everything. So yeah, I probably rounded it up to 4 stars, but it wasn't the best of the series. Next, I was sewing and I needed to listen to something. So I pulled up an old reread. I pulled up Miss Bunkle's book again. D.E. Stevenson is just so brilliant with her characters and her people. I discovered kind of something I didn't quite realize before. She knows how to show people for who they really are, not only through their own thoughts and actions, but through the way others see them and perceive them. And I thought that was genius. The meeting at Mrs. Featherstone Hogg's house, oh my. I liked it before, but this time it was so revealing about so many things. It was unbelievable. And then there was also something that I kind of missed before. So there is a character in the book, and by the time you got to the point that you know this, it wouldn't be a spoiler, so I can't actually tell you because I'm not going to tell you who the character is. But there is a character in the book who by the end he's married, and yet he's taking showgirls to dinner. And that didn't really click before. And I don't like that it's happening. It really bothers me that it's happening. But what I do like is that Stevenson made the characters do what the characters would have done, regardless of whether or not it's right. She's not trying, it's mentioned in passing, it's not a big thing, it's not a main character. So it's not like it's, but to wrap up her people and doing the things that, all the stuff, yeah, she put it in there because that's exactly what would have happened. And she let the character be as flawed and messed up and goaded into doing things that he just would. And I'm still a little, again, I'm a little kind of surprised by it because I've missed that before. But that's one of the reasons I love to reread books, because you see things. But Barbara Buncle is a first-time author. When the reviews start coming in, she's just like high on someone loved it, and then like, well, what do you think on the other one? And she's just seeing her going up and down with each review, and then cringing when the people around the town, you remember the book is written about everyone in her town, through her lens, so she sees things and it's all there, right? I had so much fun seeing that this time. I didn't, it's not that I didn't notice it before, but I didn't focus on it before. Maybe I was at the right part of my sewing, and so I could really pay extra attention, or maybe I had just stopped, and that's when, before I've always physically read it, and so it's a different experience. I just had a blast, and Miss Buncle's book is one of my favorite Stevensons. And if you haven't read Stevenson, it's a pretty good place to start. It's a hoot. And if you like that kind of just village life and, personal growth story, and you don't want a lot of romance, Stevenson is generally the one to go to, because she puts it all in there, but she doesn't, there's very little romance. It's more alluded to than actually shown, and it's for people like me, it's a nice big blessing. Then I read Sidney Chambers' Peril in the Night. It's the next collection of mysteries, because basically there are, 4, 5, 6 maybe mysteries in each book, and they're threaded together with his personal life. And this one was, I'm glad I kept going. I was a little concerned, and now I understand why the whole alternative lifestyles, I don't know what the current thing is. I don't know. I couldn't understand in the first one why it was brought in, but I did like some of the things that the one man accused said. And now in this one, it comes up again, and it's not what you expect. It's not what is happening today. And I realized that there's a difference between then and now in how I see this stuff coming up in books. I don't mind authors acknowledging that this alternative lifestyle thing happens. Okay, I don't mind knowing that there are homosexuals in the world. It doesn't make me cringe and run and cry. But I don't want to be going through a story and then feel like I'm having my, what my expectations jerked out from under me and other ones shoved in that I didn't sign up for. And that tends to happen a lot. And that's where, if I want to know, then I want to know. You know what I mean? So, this one, I finally figured out what the difference is. So here, this is post-World War II England, and at this time, this is illegal, but starting to be ignored. It's just far enough past the war that they're generally not arresting people for this anymore. It's just kind of don't ask, don't tell kind of thing. And the Church of England has kind of taken that stance at this point. He actually said that in the one I'm listening to right now. It's like, it's our policy, our position to, this is none of our business. And theologically, I disagree with that within the church. Outside the church, I'm kind of okay with it. This isn't the point. The point is, do you know Jesus? He'll take care of the rest, right? So I think what I'm seeing is him showing a shift in society, the author showing a shift in society, as opposed to having an agenda, which is what we often see today, where I feel like I'm going along, I'm reading a book, and all of a sudden everything shifts and switches, and it's almost like there's an agenda to make me comfortable with something that I may or may not be. And I much prefer this. And I like the fact that the whole series is kind of showing that evil is the same today as it was 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 2,000 years ago. How it is expressed changes with everything. And it ebbs and flows into how often and how much, but... And so I'm enjoying that, and I'm enjoying the fact that it's very matter of fact if someone is in any way, if someone is a racist, it's matter of fact. It's not drawn into an agenda to attack. If someone is homosexual, there's not this agenda to force you to hate or love or accept or reject. It's just acknowledging the fact that this is there and this is what they may have dealt with, but it's secondary. It's only put in as much as it relates to how it affects the story, instead of being put in as a commentary. And that, to me, that commentary is what I call preaching in books. And it has nothing to do with God. It has everything to do with politics and science and social, acceptabilities and all those things. When it's put in there to make a point instead of to show how people are reacting and why they're reacting, because this is part of it. So I really enjoyed it, loved it. I gave that one 5 stars, and I feel like I'm going to be giving the one I'm listening to right now 5 stars. That first one was 4, and maybe that was unjust. I'm not sure. We'll see. It might get bumped up. This one, I couldn't remember if it was this or something else I was listening to, but it feels like there was either, or possibly both, but I don't think it was both, either the use of the word for an illegitimate son, or what some might consider to be an irreverent use of God's name. I felt like it was prayerful. If it's from this book, it might be from another book that I'm not getting it put into the right place for. I'm just putting that out there. But yeah, Perils in the Night, really did love it. Okay, next up, I read The Lost Memoirs of Jane Austen by Sarah James. I gave it 4 stars. I enjoyed the book. At first, I wasn't quite sure where it was going and kind of what the point of the book was. Not that I wasn't enjoying it, but it didn't have a thread. It felt more like a fictional biography as opposed to actually the story of someone's life. I don't know how to put it, because it wasn't boring. It was intriguing. I was enjoying it, whatever. But it's almost like creative nonfiction up to a point, and then everything starts shifting. When everything started shifting, I really enjoyed it, because then I started seeing these scenarios pulled in that could have, if they were real, could have influenced actual things in Austen's books. And then you could kind of morphed into, instead of like this creative fictional biography of kind of thing, it kind of morphed into a what if this inspired that, and kind of went along. So you Austen kind of becomes the heroine in her various stories based upon, what was happening in her life. And it was kind of cool. It was really neat. And then it was neat at the end to discover, like who was real, and discover that some of these people that I didn't think would have been real actually were. And that was kind of neat, So it was a good book. Read it for the, Year of Austen. Got my thing done in there, and, that was good. I could have been showing this all along and talking about how great this book is. I forgot that I've got books here. Okay, whatever. All right, so then, or at least at some point, I read Yours, Jack by C.S. Lewis. These are collected letters by Lewis on various topics. I was surprised at some of the topics, and glad, actually, to see it. He actually talks to several different people about... Okay, so to avoid possibly irritating YouTube, I'm going to say that one of the topics that is mentioned a few times in here is, I'm going to call it self-stimulation. It's very delicately handled, and several of them I would not have known that that's what he was alluding to if the collector, can't remember his name, the guy who introduces each letter with what's going to be in it, if he hadn't actually said so. So he could be wrong, I suppose. I don't know. But there was that, and but there was just a lot in here. It was neat to see him through the letters, you see his own spiritual growth. Like at one point, he doesn't understand, I think it was answered prayer, just was really struggling with it, or was it the forgiveness of sins? It was one of the two. There were, and probably both, but those in particular, and he references it throughout the rest of the book afterwards. He's like, I had this problem with this for quite a while, but you just keep focusing on what God says about himself, and you let him deal with the change in your ability to accept it. And it was just really good. But there were 3. I marked them on top. I've got it tabbed like nobody's business. But there were 3 on top that I saved to share, because I was like, yeah, these are good. These are really good. And although I have to say, can I just say, I feel a little guilty reading this after about near the end. At some point, someone asks for someone else's letters back because they're collecting them to do something like this with, and he refuses to send them. He's like, I'm not doing that. That's not right to do to someone. That is their private correspondence, and unless they get permission, it's not going to happen. And I was like, did Lewis give permission for this? Are we kind of going? It's kind of like, no offense to people who are of this denomination. Okay, I'm not trying to be offensive. I'm actually trying to show a lot of respect. But I recall reading Luther very specifically saying, do not call yourself Lutherans. This isn't about me. And now what do we have? We have Lutherans. And it always feels so disrespectful to me that he made a strong point of saying no. And then we go along and we do it anyway. I just, I have no doubt that Calvin probably said something similar, and all the others, right? So it feels a little like that to me. Just putting that out there. So, but since we have it, and since I read it, I got almost to the end before I found that, I was like, well, it's a little late now. And for all I know, he gave permission. I don't know. Here we go. It says, the performance of a duty will probably teach you quite as much about God as academic theology would do. Mind, I'm not certain, but that's the view I incline to. This is someone who is trying to decide if he wants to go, switch his paths of study. And, I think he was a lawyer or something. And that's what he was going for. And he wanted to, so he could be a better Christian, right? And Lewis is just saying, just do what you know is right. And, focus on the Lord and don't worry about your profession. And doing duty. And there was a reason that it was a duty for the guy. And I've closed the page now, so I can't tell you what it was. But I liked that focus on just leaving God to handle these other things. Okay. This. Okay. Don't bother much about your feelings. When they are humble, loving, brave, give thanks for them. When they are conceited, selfish, cowardly, ask to have them altered. In neither case are they you, but only a thing that happens to you. What matters is your intentions and your behavior. I hope all of this is not very dull and disappointing. Write freely again if I can be of any use to you. But I just loved it because, your feelings are not you. Because if it were so, when you got bent out of shape over something that normally you wouldn't, and you're like, oh, who am I? What was that? It wasn't you. It was a moment. It was a feeling. And feelings are real, but they lie. And I love the fact, that doesn't mean they always do, but they can lie. And I just love the fact that he focused on that. So I thought it was really good. And then finally, I only let myself have a couple. I'll put my little flaggies here. Okay. Verily, he that looketh on a plate of ham and eggs to lust after it hath already committed breakfast with it in his heart, or in his glands. I just thought that was so funny. So I loved this book. I will obviously be reading it again, probably on a commonplace and whatnot glut. But yeah, really, really good. I definitely recommend that one. Just saying. Okay, and then, guys, I feel like such a hypocrite. Can I just say? I had the hardest time writing a review for this book. I said in my review, it's like, yeah, I can give you a 5 for interest, but a 2 for content or whatever. Here's the deal. It appears, okay, this is just appearance. This includes a bunch of letters. Not all of them, but most of the ones from like 1905 to 1909. Yeah. From Lucy Maud Montgomery to Ephriam Weber. And it appears, based upon what's in here, that we have his letters to her. So I don't understand why we didn't have both sides of the correspondence. Because instead we just get summaries of his. And I'm like, I think personally, me and my, vast experience with her, but I think Lucy Maud Montgomery would consider that a little arrogant that we only care what she had to say. Can I just say? Also, because of that one-sidedness, I don't know how to rate it. I didn't actually give it a rating. I just said what I think about it. I enjoyed the book. I'm not sorry I read it. And I found a few things fascinating. Like, her theology was, well, it borders on blasphemous. It was heretical for sure. She denied the deity of Christ. But what I found really interesting is she didn't put that in her books. In her books, she wrote for Sunday school papers. And in her books, we get much more orthodox or traditional Christian theology. So I don't really understand what's going on there. But there were a few places that I tabbed. I feel like there was, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find it. I'm just gonna look real quick. Yeah, there it is. I found it first thing. That's amazing. Good. Today I read that Henry Ward Beecher once said, "Flowers are the sweetest things God ever made and forgot to put souls into." But I don't believe he forgot. I believe they have souls. I've known roses that I expect to meet in heaven. This is Anne. This is where we get Anne. I love it so much. So I did enjoy it. I'm really glad I read it. It was part of the epistolary thing, and which also this one was. But yeah. I don't know. So I don't know how to rate it. I just don't know how. No. Okay, next up, I read the appeal. This, I didn't catch, anyway, I read it on Kindle. I didn't catch why we were looking into this. A bunch of documentation is loaded onto these two people who are talking about it occasionally through the course of the book. And they're supposed to sift through it and find out what happened. So we start at the beginning with this communication at the beginning. And basically a little girl has cancer and they found this protocol in the US and they need to raise a bunch of money to get this girl the medication she needs because we got to save this child. So they go on this major fundraising thing and different characters, come into play and things like that. There is one character, when I found out more about said character, I about lost it because I did not see that coming. So there are twists that are just whatever, but I figured out pretty quickly. I figured it out between two people. I couldn't tell for sure. I thought it was one. It turned out to be the other. I was leaning the one direction. It turned out to be the other. But the minute I came across the right information, then obviously I jumped to that other person. It was pretty obvious because you're like, when you know. But it's text messages and emails and newsletters and police reports and interviews and newspaper articles, inter-office messaging, And then the texts or WhatsApps or whatever the things are between the investigators. So you go like halfway through the book, and I knew exactly who would be killed. Someone's going to die. I knew it pretty quickly when it happened. And I knew why, sort of. I knew the general why, not the specific why. Let's go with that. And so you have all these things, and they're coming, and they're really cool. But, oh man, then you get to a certain part of the book, and more information comes in. You didn't have it all at the beginning. So this is where spoilers come in. Just the fact that, so sorry, I will try to remember to put a block. There's spoileriness coming. So out of the blue, it's like 2/3 in the way through the book or so, you're given a bunch more information. And it's like, wait a minute. But when that happens, something that was said before that niggled at me now made sense. And I'm like, uh-oh. And then I can't remember the moment that I went, oh my word, this is a thing. This is a thing. I didn't want to believe it. It's like it had been like kind of pushing, and I was like, just like, no. But it was a thing. And I loved that it was. And usually this thing is something that I really hate in books. And I just don't want to say what it is. It would ruin the story for someone. But oh my goodness, it was so much fun. I really enjoyed it. Really, I loved it. Here's the deal. This would have been a 5-star book for me if it had been cleaner. There is no smut. It's all office stuff, and people don't just like write out their personal scenes to each other as a general rule, and thankfully we didn't get any of that. I mean, I'm sure it can happen, but it wasn't there, and I was really glad. There were, I want to say there were 4, maybe 5 F-bombs dropped. And I did not appreciate it. Fortunately, they were sprinkled apart. If they'd been closer together, I probably wouldn't have finished the book. So I really am glad that it was, separated. I feel like there might have been a word for excrement. Don't quote me on that. I didn't like the language. If the next book I read has more than this, and I find out that the next book after that I was still interested in, but it's later rather than earlier, I will probably not keep reading. I don't know what has come out since before this. I don't know. This could be her first book. I haven't looked. If this is her first one, I'm going to be really cautious about the next one. If the next one seems to have more, I will go back and read stuff before, hoping that, she's just increasing. Sometimes they do that, and it just annoys me. So there's that. Just, I really had fun with it. And I didn't realize how many pages this thing was. Yeah, it's got like 432 pages. So it actually fit one of the package prompt for the epistolary thing. That was great. But okay, finally, this one is the one that I keep struggling with. I loved this book. The book I loved. I loved most of the story. I loved most of the characters, even when I didn't like them. It was so good. I loved that she took a difficult, hard part of our fallen world and showed it in a way that is pretty cool. But here's the deal. What we have in here is Narnia-esque. They are pulled out of World War II and into the woodlands. And the woodlands feels a bit like Narnia in spring, kind of without the White Witch. But there is somebody coming in who's trying to take over, who is very horrible. And there's that whole war thing going on, kind of like in Narnia. So that's where the Narnia-esqueness is similar. We have Evelyn and Philippa and Jamie, and their siblings. The girls are the oldest and youngest, I think. Don't quote me on that. But in this Woodlands world, Evelyn finally feels like she's home. This is where she belongs, and she loves it. And they're there for, I believe it's 6 years before they have to go home. And so they've grown up, and when they go home, they're little kids again, and they have, well, not little kids, but by comparison, they're not adults anymore. And so they have to like start over and relive all the difficult times. The problem is that Evelyn feels betrayed by being sent back. She didn't want to go back. And what I don't understand, and this was something I didn't even bring up in my review because I don't understand it. And because I don't understand it, I can't really comment on it. But they've been taken out of a hard situation. They're going to the Canada geese are here. Hello. Ha! I love it. It's the first ones I've seen and heard. Wow. Okay, they're coming early this year. Usually it's closer to the end of February. But anyway, so they, they're taken out of their Anderson shelter into this Woodlands, right? Their parents are left behind. The parents don't know that they've been taken because there is no time loss, right? But they don't miss their parents. I mean, I don't remember any of the kids ever once being concerned about mom and dad. I mean, they know that they're going to go back and there's going to be no time missing. So they're not like worried about their parents freaking out. There's no reason for them to, and that makes sense. But what doesn't make sense is, how do you have this little girl who doesn't miss mom at all? She doesn't want to go back. She doesn't want to see mom again. She doesn't care. Mom and dad are like non-entities. And that should have brought a star down for me. But I really loved how well this author handled the depression. Evelyn has some pretty severe depression. And it shows up in all the ways. If you've lived with someone with depression and you know how they think and how they can't not think and how they can't get out of themselves enough to realize how much they're hurting people around them, it's not deliberate. They just can't. She shows that all really well. She shows at one point, I don't think this is a spoiler, at one point she's out gardening, and she's one of the things that people who struggle with depression really struggle with the most is they have no feelings. They can't feel. And she, at this point, she runs across these stinging nettles and she just thrusts her arms and hands into them and just lets it hurt her, because then she can feel. And it was brilliant because it shows why people self-harm in a way that isn't, we're not getting blood trickling down arms and just the gruesomeness that we often hear about. It's a gentle way of showing a hard truth. And I thought it was brilliant. But, so what we have is Evelyn is going back. She's gone back to school. Her sister has, ever since they got back, has spent all of her days, every waking hour practically, and what hours she should have been sleeping, taking care of the sister and trying to keep her mentally and physically safe. This girl is so absorbed in her loss of this other world that she feels like is home that she can't see what she's doing to everyone around her. And everyone loves her and is kind to her, but she is, which is kind of nice. You're at this boarding school, and for the most part, these girls aren't awful to her. And that was really nice, and that was a little different. You don't have a big focus on the school bully, the mean girl who's, that's not there. So there's that. But then the sister can't take it anymore. She is mad at the sister and sends the sister away. So the sister goes to the U.S. and she's going to go to school and get, a breather from all that she's had to endure. And that's really where this book picks up. And we get the back into the Woodlands. We get the back history. We go back and see it play out. But as far as today, that's where it happens. But then she goes missing. And the sister has to come back, and we get to see everything from her side and everything that goes on. Now, here's where I don't like Evelyn. Okay, I'm just going to say up front, I have compassion for Evelyn. She is sympathetic to me in that I've seen her, everything about her playing out with people that I know and love. Okay, but because she is mentally ill, her brain isn't functioning properly, she cannot see the pain that she is inflicting on people left and right. She's not capable of it. She's not likable when she's like this. You can care about her, but she's not likable. She meets a boy that her brother introduced her to. The boy, the brother asked the boy to make friends with her. They become really good friends. Almost slightly romantic, but very subtle and sweet and not there. But she does a number on this kid with her, just pulling away and with her depression. Her depression prompts her to do very hurtful, awful things to people. She messes this kid up. If he is not messed up for life, I would not be surprised. This is the whole spoileriness that I was telling you about. She messes him up. She is just not, it's not good. And it's so selfish. All she wants is what she wants. She wants to go back, and she doesn't care how much pain she inflicts on everyone around her. And this is what should have made me not like the book. Because I don't like her. I don't like what she's doing to people. But it's actually what made me like the book. And it took me a while to figure out that that's why I really loved this book. Because it is a gentle and a caring way to show people what happens. Unfortunately, I had a thought today that I don't think is true. Okay, I'm just going to put this out there. I don't think this is true. But I think in the minds of some people, it could be taken as true. So here goes. Because all she wants is to get away. She doesn't care what it takes. All she wants is to get back to her land. I could see, and it's all about her and what she wants and what is best for her. I could see young readers, young minds who are still forming and still trying to understand the world around them and are still not strong reasoners yet. I could see them taking this as symbolic of it's okay to commit suicide. Because in a sense, that's what she does. She removes herself from her world to get to another world. Even if she never gets there, she disappears. And I won't tell you how that happens and how that plays out and everything, because that would be like ridiculous spoiler. But we all know she goes missing. I believe it's in the synopsis. Yeah, she goes missing. She removes herself from this world because it's more important to her for her to have what she wants and what makes her happy than to get help. And I love where the author set this. She set this, post World War II, where getting help means going to a sanatorium where they will probably do terrible experiments on you, and it would not have been a good situation. Okay, I'm just gonna say, I love that the author did that. But when I got done with this, I was like, I will absolutely be reading more by her. This won't, but I actually don't think I will. Ever since I've thought more and more and more and more and more about it, I'm like, no. I would need to know more from someone up front, because I have seen some of the synopses of some of the books that I knew without a doubt I wouldn't touch. And now that I've thought more and more and more about this, the more I'm kind of sure that maybe I wouldn't want to. I certainly wouldn't want my child, this is YA, I would not want one of my children under 18, 20, to read a steady diet of this, because I don't think it would be healthy. But I think it was very healthy for me to read it, to learn more compassion for, and to be reminded of where the mindset is and all that good stuff. And I don't think it would be a bad thing for 18 to read one of these. You know, I mean, I would have given this to my 16-year-old and said, this, you know, this person in our family, this, how Evelyn thinks, this is what's going through that mind. And this is why, you know, we need to be vigilant and be caring, and, you know, but I wouldn't want her to read a bunch of this author if the other ones are of the similar vein that I'm afraid that they are. Okay, I'm just putting that out there. But there was this one. So she asks what he's looking forward to most when he goes home. And he says, waking up to the rooster instead of the bell at school. Our kitchen and the way my mom always sings when she works. The sound of my sisters laughing about something. They're terrors. But they take a shine to you. The way my dad keeps quiet. And he's always listening. And no one gives better advice if you can pry it out of him. Being back on the Dales and being able to go wherever I want, whenever I want. Yeah, I loved that picture of home and all the things. And yeah, I loved the book. I just didn't love all the characters. I did not love one of our main characters. I cared about what happened to her. She was sympathetic. But it was hard. And again, I wouldn't want a steady diet of it. But it's an important book, I think. I really do. I really do think it's an important book. We need to understand, you know. But yeah, so but here's the physical stack. It's small, but I think I read like 16 books in January and 5 of them in the first half. So I read 11 books. This is only 5 here. I guess the rest were audio. But yeah, looking forward to February. I've already finished 2 books and about ready to finish a 3rd, and I'm about ready to get started on some of these. This one, I just found this out. This is a series. Before the Coffee Gets Cold, this is a series. So I'm going to, about the time I get to that little slip, if I'm enjoying it, I'm going to put the next one on hold. But yeah, I'm going to put that up there. So yeah, that's what I read. I had fun, and yeah, now I need to get in there and make dinner. So have a good one, and I will see you on Friday with something. I might be going gooch. We might be talking gooch, but I'm not promising because that could take longer than I expect. I don't know. We'll see. I'll talk to you later.